The Imperial scout ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of an unremarkable solar system. Its sensors immediately detected 9 planets orbiting a yellow star, but the crew's attention focused on the third planet, a blue marble suspended in space. Captain Smith of the Earth Defense Force watched the alien vessel through advanced telescopes hidden in the asteroid belt. He smiled. The aliens thought they were being stealthy, but human sensors had detected their approach 3 days ago. Now, humanity would play its carefully rehearsed role. The Imperial scouts spent 2 weeks observing Earth, their ship cloaked with technology they believed made them invisible. They watched human satellites, studied radio transmissions, and analyzed the primitive-looking spacecraft that rarely ventured beyond low Earth orbit. Another developing civilization, Commander Reed of the scout ship noted in his report. Technology level: pre-FTL. Military threat: minimal. Recommended action: standard diplomatic contact followed by integration into the Empire. Reed didn't know that beneath Earth's oceans, inside hollowed-out mountains, and in underground bases across the planet, humanity's real military might waited. 100 years of preparing for this moment had taught them patience. The Empire's first official contact came exactly as Earth's analysts had predicted. A massive ship, decorated with the golden symbols of Imperial authority, appeared in high orbit. It broadcast a message in multiple frequencies. People of Earth, we come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Empire. We offer you protection, guidance, and membership in our great civilization. Prepare your leaders for diplomatic contact. In New York, the United Earth Council gathered in their underground chamber. Military commanders, political leaders, and scientific advisors sat around a circular table, watching the alien transmission. General Roberts, head of the Earth Defense Force, stood up. "They're right on schedule," he said. "Our deep space probes detected their empire 50 years ago. We've studied their expansion pattern, their tactics, and their technology. They always follow the same approach: peaceful contact, demands for submission, and then military action if refused." President Anderson nodded. "And they always win because they target worlds that haven't developed proper space combat capabilities. Worlds that don't expect invasion. Worlds unlike Earth." For a century, humanity had maintained a carefully crafted illusion. While showing the galaxy only primitive rockets and basic satellites, they had built a military force unlike anything the Empire had encountered. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapon platforms disguised as space debris, and a fleet of advanced warships waiting in underground bases, all invisible to Imperial scans. The Council selected Ambassador James Miller to meet the Imperial delegation. He was a quiet man with gray hair and gentle eyes, exactly the kind of representative that would make the Empire feel superior and confident. The meeting took place in a simple conference room in Geneva. The Imperial delegates arrived in their ornate uniforms, their translator devices ready. 5 alien representatives entered, their tall, slender forms towering over the human delegation. Lead Imperial diplomat Lord Voss spoke first, his translator converting his words to English. "We are pleased you accepted our invitation for peaceful contact. The Empire brings civilization and order to all worlds we encounter. Your integration will be smooth if you cooperate." Miller listened politely, hands folded on the table. The aliens continued explaining how Earth would benefit from Imperial rule, how resistance was pointless, and how submission was the only logical choice. When they finished, Miller stood up slowly. The aliens expected him to show fear, or perhaps gratitude. Instead, he smiled, not a friendly smile, but the kind of smile that warriors give before battle. "We've studied your empire for decades," Miller said calmly. "We know about the worlds you've conquered, the civilizations you've subjugated, the species you've enslaved. We know your tactics, your technology, and your weaknesses." The Imperial delegates shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't following their usual script. "Humanity has spent the last century preparing for this moment," Miller continued. "We've fought wars for thousands of years. We've perfected the art of combat in ways you can't imagine. So we'll give you one warning. The same warning we've given every would-be conqueror throughout our history." Miller leaned forward, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Run." The Imperial delegates laughed nervously, but their laughter died when they saw the cold certainty in Miller's eyes. They didn't know it yet, but they had just made the biggest mistake in Imperial history. They had threatened a species that had turned warfare into an art form, and humanity was ready to teach them their first lesson. The Imperial delegates left the Geneva meeting in a state of confusion. No species had ever responded to their diplomatic contact with such confidence. Lord Voss paced in his ship's command room, replaying Ambassador Miller's warning in his mind. "Show me their military capabilities again," he ordered his intelligence officer. The holographic display activated, showing Earth's visible defenses, a few hundred satellites, some primitive space stations, and rockets that could barely reach their own moon. It looked pathetic compared to Imperial standards. "Perhaps they're delusional," one of his advisors suggested. "Many primitive species overestimate their strength before learning reality." But something bothered Voss. He had overseen the conquest of 12 worlds, and none of them had studied the Empire before contact. None had known their tactics. None had smiled like Miller did. The next morning, Miller requested another meeting. This time, he brought a small data device. The Imperial delegation arrived, ready to begin standard subjugation protocols. "Before you make your next move," Miller said, placing the device on the table, "we want to show you something." The device projected images into the air. The aliens watched as scenes of human warfare played before them. World wars, tank battles, aircraft carriers, nuclear weapons, guerrilla warfare, urban combat, special forces operations. "This is just the last 100 years, Miller explained. "We've been fighting and perfecting warfare for thousands of years. While your empire grew through easy conquests, we fought ourselves. We survived. We evolved." The images kept coming. Modern weapons testing, orbital defense platforms disguised as debris, underground bases that Imperial scans had missed, ships hidden in plain sight. "Impossible," Lord Voss whispered. "Our scans showed nothing like this." Miller's smile grew wider. "Did you really think a species that developed nuclear weapons would only have primitive rockets? That we wouldn't prepare for space warfare? Every satellite you see is a decoy. Every primitive rocket is a show. We've been ready for aliens like you for a very long time." The Imperial delegates watched as the presentation showed Earth's true military strength. Stealth ships that could match Imperial vessels. Weapons designed specifically to counter Imperial shields. Defense systems that covered the entire solar system. "Your empire has conquered 100 worlds," Miller continued, "but you've never fought a real war. Your victims were primitive or peaceful. They didn't spend centuries preparing for you. They didn't have our experience. They didn't have our determination." Lord Voss stood up, his tall frame trembling with anger. "You dare threaten the Empire? We have millions of ships, countless soldiers, technologies you can't imagine. Numbers mean nothing without experience," Miller replied calmly. "You fight like an empire, slow, predictable, reliant on overwhelming force. We fight like humans, adaptive, creative, and absolutely ruthless when threatened." He played one final recording. Earth's combined military forces conducting exercises in secret locations across the solar system. Ships moving with precision that shocked the Imperial observers. Weapons deploying with devastating effect. Tactics unlike anything in Imperial records. "This is your final warning," Miller said. "Leave our solar system. Tell your empire to avoid Earth. Because if you don't, we will not show mercy. We will not stop at defending our world. We will show you why every human child learns about war in history class, while your empire has only known easy victories." The Imperial delegates left in silence. On their ship, Lord Voss received an urgent message. Their long-range sensors had finally penetrated Earth's technological deception. Hidden bases were becoming visible. Weapon platforms were powering up. Ships were emerging from secret locations. They knew we would scan deeper after the meeting. His technical officer realized. They wanted us to see this. Lord Voss faced a decision no Imperial diplomat had ever faced. Should he follow standard protocol and call for military action? Or should he do something no Imperial representative had done before, retreat? Before he could decide, his sensors detected movement. Hundreds of human ships had appeared from nowhere, forming a defensive screen around Earth. Their message was clear. The time for talking was over. Humanity had spent a century preparing for this moment. Now they would show the Empire why their warning to run wasn't just a threat. It was mercy. The Imperial Council received Lord Voss's report with disbelief. No primitive world had ever shown such defiance, let alone such military readiness. The Council's leader, High Commander Drake, laughed at Earth's warning. "Send the Fourth Fleet," he ordered. 1,000 ships should be enough to teach these humans their place. Back on Earth, military bases worldwide sprang into action. In the Rocky Mountains, massive doors opened in seemingly solid rock faces, revealing hangars filled with advanced warships. Beneath the Pacific Ocean, underwater bases activated their launch systems. In the Sahara Desert, hidden bunkers unveiled rows of spacecraft that had never seen daylight. General Roberts stood in the Global Command Center, watching as humanity's real military power awakened. Screens showed troops boarding ships, weapons being loaded, and defense systems coming online. A century of preparation was about to be tested. "Status report," he commanded. "Solar system defense grid at 100%. His operations officer reported. "All 5,000 stealth platforms are active. Asteroid belt defenses are ready. Jupiter's moon bases are reporting full combat readiness." Another officer spoke up. "The civilian evacuation to underground shelters is proceeding as planned. All major cities have activated their shield systems. The public remains calm. The drills we've run for decades are paying off." Roberts nodded. Humanity had learned from its long history of war. Civilian protection came first. While the Empire expected panic and chaos, Earth's population moved with practiced efficiency to safety. In orbit, Commander Walker led the Space Defense Force. His flagship, hidden until now as a communications satellite, transformed into its true form, a warship designed specifically to combat Imperial technology. "All ships, report in," Walker ordered through the command network. One by one, Earth's hidden fleet checked in. Ships that the Empire had missed in their scans revealed themselves. Vessels disguised as space debris transformed into combat-ready warships. What had seemed like a defenseless planet now bristled with military power. "Remember your training," Walker told his crews. "We've studied their tactics for 50 years. We know how they fight. They rely on numbers and brute force. We'll use speed and strategy." The Empire's Fourth Fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, exactly where Earth's analysts had predicted. 1,000 ships, arranged in the same formation the Empire had used for centuries. In the Imperial flagship, Admiral Stone felt confident. "Look at their pitiful defenses," he said to his bridge crew. "This won't even be a battle." But then his sensor officer shouted in alarm. "Sir, new contacts appearing everywhere. They're rising from the planet, emerging from asteroids, transforming from what we thought was debris." On Earth, General Roberts watched the Empire's reaction to humanity's revelation. "Send the message," he ordered. Every Imperial ship received the same transmission. "This is your last chance to retreat. We have studied every battle your Empire has fought. We know your weaknesses. We know your tactics. We are not like the others you've conquered." Admiral Stone ignored the warning. "Form up for standard attack pattern," he ordered. "We'll show these humans the power of the Empire." In response, Earth's fleet did something the Empire had never seen. Instead of forming a defensive line, the human ships scattered in seemingly random directions. The asteroid belt came alive with activity as hidden weapon platforms revealed themselves. "What are they doing?" Stone demanded. "This isn't proper military formation." Commander Walker smiled on his bridge. "All ships execute Operation Hornet's Nest." Earth's fleet moved like a swarm of angry insects, breaking into smaller groups, each operating independently but part of a larger strategy. It was warfare unlike anything the Empire had encountered. Fluid, unpredictable, deadly. General Roberts watched from the command center as humanity's plan unfolded. They had spent decades preparing for this moment, studying Imperial tactics, developing countermeasures, and creating strategies that would shock an enemy used to fighting predictable battles. "The Empire thinks they're starting a war," Roberts told his staff. "But we've been fighting wars since before they discovered space travel. Now we'll show them why humanity has survived every conflict in our history." The Empire's Fourth Fleet moved forward, still believing this would be an easy victory. They had no idea they were flying into a trap 100 years in the making. Earth was about to teach them why their ancestors had called war hell. Admiral Stone watched in confusion as Earth's fleet continued their chaotic movement patterns. His 1,000 ships moved forward in the Empire's traditional arrow formation, a display of power that had terrified countless civilizations before. "They're not even trying to form a proper battle line," he scoffed. "These humans know nothing of space warfare." His confidence lasted exactly 2 more minutes. Commander Walker's voice echoed through all Earth's ships. "Execute Wolf Pack Protocol." The scattered human vessels suddenly shifted. Small groups of 5 ships each began moving with deadly purpose. Like wolves hunting larger prey, they darted in and out of the asteroid field, using terrain that the Empire had always considered useless in space combat. "Sir," Stone's tactical officer shouted, "we're detecting energy spikes everywhere." Hidden weapons platforms in the asteroid belt powered up. Each one had been placed decades ago, positioned perfectly to create overlapping fields of fire. The Empire's neat formation had walked right into humanity's killing zone. "Impossible," Stone whispered as his sensors showed the true scale of Earth's preparation. Fire. Fire at will. But the Empire's weapons, designed for large-scale battles against conventional forces, struggled to lock onto the small, fast-moving human ships. And those ships had been built specifically to fight Imperial vessels. Walker's flagship led the first strike. Group Alpha, target their command and control systems. Group Beta, hit their engines. All other groups, you know your targets. Remember your training. No mercy. The human ships struck like lightning. Decades of studying Imperial shield frequencies let them slip through defenses that had never failed before. Weapons specifically designed to exploit Imperial weak points tore into the larger vessels. "How?" Stone demanded as reports of damage flooded in. "How do they know exactly where to hit us?" The answer was simple. Humanity had spent a century studying every piece of Imperial technology they could find. They'd salvaged debris from Imperial battles, intercepted communications, and analyzed every scrap of data about Imperial ships. They knew these vessels better than their own creators. In the asteroid belt, Earth's defense platforms launched waves of stealth missiles. Not the primitive rockets the Empire had detected earlier, but advanced weapons that carried multiple warheads, each programmed to exploit specific Imperial vulnerabilities. 30 Imperial ships destroyed, reported Walker's tactical officer. No human casualties yet. The simulations were accurate. Their crews don't know how to handle unexpected attacks. Stone tried to rally his fleet, but human ships seemed to be everywhere at once. When the Empire concentrated their fire on one area, they hit nothing but decoys. When they tried to retreat, they found their escape routes blocked by minefields they hadn't detected. "This isn't warfare," Stone shouted. This is how humans fight," Walker responded over an open channel. "We don't follow rules. We don't fight fair. We survive." On Earth, General Roberts watched the battle's progress. The Empire's mighty fleet was being torn apart by forces they had dismissed as primitive. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by opponents who refused to fight according to Imperial doctrine. Status report, Roberts commanded. Enemy fleet at 60% strength and falling, his officer reported. Our losses minimal, mostly unmanned platforms. The asteroid belt strategy is working perfectly. They can't coordinate their forces effectively. The Empire's neat formation had completely broken down. Their ships, used to fighting in large organized groups, found themselves isolated and surrounded. Each human wolf pack struck precisely, disabled their target, and vanished back into the asteroid field before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. Send the second wave, Roberts ordered. Fresh squadrons of human ships emerged from hidden bases on Mars and Jupiter's moons. The Empire hadn't even known these bases existed. Now they faced fresh enemies from directions they thought secure. Admiral Stone stared at his tactical display in horror. His mighty fleet, which had never known defeat, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. Full retreat, he finally ordered. Get us out of this system. But as his surviving ships tried to flee, they learned another lesson about human warfare. We don't let enemies escape to fight another day. The battle that would become known as humanity's Declaration of Independence was just beginning. The Imperial Palace shook with High Commander Drake's rage. The surviving ships of the Fourth Fleet had limped back to Imperial space, bringing news of a defeat unlike any in Empire's history. 800 ships lost to a primitive world that wasn't supposed to have space combat capability. Impossible, Drake shouted, smashing his fist on the grand strategy table. No one defeats the Empire. No one. His advisors trembled as battle recordings played on the room's holographic displays. They watched human ships moving with impossible precision, striking exactly where Imperial shields were weakest, using tactics that violated every principle of proper space combat. My lord, one advisor said carefully, perhaps we should consider diplomatic. No. Drake's voice echoed through the chamber. I will not be the first High Commander to negotiate with primitives. Prepare the main fleet. All of it. In Earth's Global Command Center, General Roberts received the news with grim satisfaction. Long-range sensors showed massive Imperial fleet movements, exactly as predicted. They're pulling ships from every corner of their empire, his intelligence officer reported. 20,000 vessels. Their entire main fleet. Roberts nodded, and leaving their conquered worlds unprotected. Activate Phase 2. Across Earth, new ships emerged from hidden shipyards. These weren't the defensive vessels that had fought the Fourth Fleet. These were Earth's offensive fleet. Ships built for long-range operations, designed to take the fight to Imperial space. Commander Walker stood on his new flagship's bridge, watching his crews prepare for the bigger battle ahead. Status of Operation Trojan. Agents in place on 12 Imperial worlds, his intelligence officer reported. The subjugated species are ready. They've been watching how we fight, learning. The Empire had never imagined that humans would have infiltrated their territory years ago, preparing for this moment. While Imperial scouts watched Earth's primitive rockets, human agents spread through their empire, making contact with oppressed species, sharing knowledge, preparing for rebellion. High Commander Drake appeared on all Imperial channels, his face twisted with rage. People of Earth, you have earned the Empire's full attention. Our main fleet approaches. Surrender now, and we may spare your population from complete extermination. In response, Earth broadcast scenes from human history, not just wars, but the aftermath. Cities rebuilt from ashes, nations rising from defeat, humanity's endless ability to survive and grow stronger from conflict. They still don't understand, Roberts said, watching the Imperial fleet approach. They think numbers alone win wars. The main fleet emerged from hyperspace in waves of thousands. Ships stretched as far as sensors could detect. Drake commanded from a super dreadnought at the fleet's center, certain that no force could resist such power. See the might of the Empire. Drake transmitted. Your pathetic tricks won't work against. His transmission cut off as Earth revealed its next surprise. The debris from the previous battle wasn't debris at all. Each broken ship was a mine, waiting for the main fleet to arrive exactly where Earth's analysts had predicted they would. Synchronized explosions tore through the Imperial formation, but this was just the start. Earth's offensive fleet jumped in from multiple directions, using tactics the Empire had never seen before. Instead of meeting the Imperial fleet in direct battle, human ships targeted supply lines, communication nodes, and command ships. Status report. Drake demanded as chaos erupted across his fleet. My lord, we're receiving reports of rebellions on 12 worlds. The subject species, they're using human tactics. This was humanity's real strategy. While the Empire gathered its fleet for one massive battle, Earth had taught other species how to fight back. The Empire faced not just one defiant world, but an uprising of dozens of species they had oppressed. Drake watched in horror as his mighty fleet fell into confusion. Human ships struck from all directions, using the Empire's own ships as cover, turning their formation size against them. His commanders, trained in classical Imperial tactics, had no answer for warfare that ignored every rule they knew. Earth's message played again on Imperial channels. We warned you to run. Now learn why humanity has never been conquered. The greatest space battle in Imperial history was about to begin. But for the first time, the Empire faced an enemy that didn't fear them. An enemy that had spent a century preparing to teach them the true meaning of war. High Commander Drake's mighty fleet was falling apart. 20,000 ships should have been invincible. Instead, they were trapped in a nightmare of human military innovation. My lord, his strategic officer reported, the humans, they're inside our command network. Years before first contact, Earth's cyber warfare teams had cracked Imperial communications. Now they broadcast directly to every Imperial ship. Your Empire enslaved peaceful worlds. We are not peaceful. We are humanity. And we are your worst nightmare. Commander Walker directed Earth's offensive from his flagship, watching as Imperial ships fired wildly at shadows and decoys. Execute Operation Ghost Fleet, he ordered. Suddenly, holographic projectors hidden throughout the battlefield activated. The Empire's sensors showed thousands of new human ships appearing from nowhere. The Imperial fleet panicked, firing desperately at images, while real human ships struck from different directions. It's a trick, Drake screamed. They're not real. But his crews, already shaken by human tactics, couldn't tell the difference between real threats and holograms. Ships crashed into each other trying to evade phantom attacks. The mighty Imperial formation dissolved into chaos. On 12 Imperial worlds, the subjugated species launched their rebellions. Earth had taught them well. No direct battles, no large armies. Instead, they used sabotage, guerrilla tactics, and precision strikes. Imperial garrisons found themselves fighting enemies that disappeared before they could respond. Status update. General Roberts demanded in Earth's command center. Imperial fleet at 40% effectiveness, his officer reported. Their command structure is breaking down. 8 colony worlds have declared independence. 3 more are in open revolt. The Empire had never faced a war like this. They expected to fight one primitive world. Instead, they faced a species that had turned warfare into an art form and had taught others to do the same. Drake watched helplessly as another battle group disappeared into a human ambush. His mighty fleet, pride of the Empire, was being destroyed piece by piece, not by superior numbers or technology, but by an enemy that simply understood warfare better than they did. My lord, his aide whispered, the Imperial Council is demanding answers. Other species are watching our defeat. The Empire's authority. Silence. Drake roared. But he knew the truth. Every moment of this battle was being broadcast across Imperial space. Species that had feared the Empire for centuries were watching humanity teach them about true warfare. Walker's voice came over Imperial channels again. Your empire is built on crushing the weak. Humanity is not weak. We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves, perfecting the art of war. Now we're using that knowledge to free every world you've enslaved. Earth's offensive fleet struck Drake's command ship next, not with massive weapons or overwhelming force, but with precise strikes at vital systems. Human ships, smaller but more agile, slipped through gaps in Imperial formation that shouldn't have existed. Status report, Drake demanded. My lord, we've lost contact with the entire 3rd Division. The 5th Division is retreating without orders. The 2nd Division, they're surrendering to the humans. This was unprecedented. Imperial forces had never surrendered. But humanity had done what no other species had managed. They'd broken the Empire's iron discipline and shattered their belief in their own invincibility. In Earth's command center, Roberts received an urgent message. Sir, Imperial ships are broadcasting surrender signals across all frequencies. No tricks? Roberts asked. No, sir. Their crews are in open revolt. They're saying they won't die for Drake's pride. The Empire's mighty fleet was not just defeated, it was broken. Ships fled in every direction. Some surrendered. Some tried to run. But Earth's forces had surrounded the battlefield days ago, waiting for this moment. Drake stood on his command bridge, watching his life's work dissolve into chaos. The empire that had stood unchallenged for centuries was falling to a species that had warned them to run. Open a channel, he finally ordered, his voice hollow. To Earth's command. But before he could speak, human ships appeared all around his vessel. Commander Walker's voice came through one final time. You should have listened to our warning. The battle that would reshape the galaxy was reaching its climax. Humanity had not just survived. They had changed the very nature of warfare in space, and the Empire was about to learn its final lesson. 1 month after the Great Battle, representatives from Earth stood in the Imperial Palace's Grand Hall. The massive room, once a symbol of Imperial power, now hosted a very different kind of meeting. High Commander Drake, stripped of his authority, sat in chains. Commander Walker and General Roberts represented Earth's military. Ambassador Miller, who had first warned the Empire to run, stood at the center of the delegation. The terms of surrender are simple, Miller announced to the gathered Imperial Council. Every enslaved world gets its freedom. Every species you conquered gets independence. The Empire's military will be disbanded. The council members shifted uncomfortably. One spoke up. You can't destroy an empire that has stood for 1,000 years. Miller smiled that same calm smile he'd shown at first contact. We already have. Look outside. Through the palace's massive windows, they could see Earth's ships in orbit, not displaying power like the Empire would have, but simply watching, ready. In the streets below, citizens from a dozen freed worlds celebrated. Your empire fell because you forgot the most important lesson of power, Miller continued. Those who only know victory never learn to survive defeat. Humanity knows both. We've lost battles, wars, entire civilizations, but we always come back stronger. General Roberts stepped forward, activating a holographic display. It showed the Empire's former territories, now divided into free, independent worlds. Some had already signed treaties with Earth, learning to defend themselves. Others were rebuilding their ancient cultures. You have 2 choices, Roberts explained. Accept these terms and survive as one nation among equals, or resist and learn why even human children study the art of war. In the months since the battle, humanity had proven they could fight across an entire galaxy. Imperial garrisons on distant worlds faced attacks from both local rebellions and human special forces. Every Imperial advantage had been turned against them. How? Drake finally asked, his voice broken. How did you defeat us so completely? Commander Walker answered, because you fight wars to conquer. We fight wars to survive. You never understood what that meant until now. The Imperial Council took less than an hour to accept Earth's terms. They had no choice. Their fleet was destroyed. their armies in chaos, their subject worlds in rebellion. The mighty empire had been defeated by a species they dismissed as primitive. But humanity's victory came with responsibility. Earth's leaders had planned for this too. "We will help rebuild," Miller told the council. "Not as conquerors, but as equals. Every species you enslaved will be free to choose their own path. Some may ally with Earth, others may stand alone. That's what freedom means." Across the former empire, change spread faster than anyone expected. Species that had been oppressed for generations emerged into freedom, many using techniques and technologies Earth had taught them. The age of Imperial dominance was over. In Earth's Global Command Center, General Roberts received the final surrender documents. "Broadcast this across all channels," he ordered. "Let everyone know the war is over." The message went out in every language, to every world. The Empire has fallen. Every species is now free. Earth stands ready to help all who want to build a new future. Commander Walker, watching from his flagship, thought about how it had ended. Not with the Empire's destruction, but with something more powerful, their complete understanding of why they should have listened to humanity's warning. "Send the final message," Walker ordered. On every Imperial world, on every surviving ship, the same words appeared. "We warned you to run. Now we offer you peace. Remember this lesson. Humanity fights hardest not for conquest, but for freedom." In Geneva, where the conflict had begun with a simple warning, Ambassador Miller stood at his office window. Ships from dozens of newly freed worlds filled the sky, their crews coming to learn from the species that had shattered an empire. "Did we do the right thing?" his aide asked. Miller watched as delegations from former Imperial worlds met with human teachers, learning not just about warfare, but about freedom, democracy, and peace. "We did the necessary thing," he answered. "The Empire had to fall so others could rise. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy. We know that true strength isn't in conquering others, but in helping them stand up for themselves." The Empire that had never lost a war had finally met humanity, and learned why Earth's first warning should have been heeded. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity stood ready to defend that new freedom, knowing that their reputation would make others think twice before threatening peace again.